Namaste everyone, and on behalf of Bhavita Foundation, I welcome every one of you for coming and joining us for this event today. Can we please have Brinda, Lisa, and Rebecca ji and Dr. Reena switch on their cameras?
Okay, thank you. I regret the technical glitch that just happened at my end. But nevertheless, it's been a beautiful day. And I'm sure for all of us women out there celebrating Women's Day, like every day is our day. And we do so much because we are always involved with something on our hands. I don't think there has been ever a time that any woman in this world has been, not having a task to do or nothing on hand to happen. So that's how our days have been. And like in this entire busy schedule, still all of you have taken some time out to hear and be a part of this beautiful event with us. I express my gratitude on behalf of Bhavita Foundation. So good evening everyone, and just introducing myself, Samira Shah, I'm on the managing council of the foundation. And of course it gives me immense pleasure to take this as an opportunity. Women have always been a very pivot point, a pivot of Indian culture, of all its inspiration and all its embassies. This was very well said by Sarojini Naidu. Let us understand the role of Indian women throughout history, their role in society, their contributions, and what the position of women is in modern India. This is the topic that we are going to definitely explore much more by and with our young speakers today, Brinda and Lisa. With a focus on mental and physical wellness for women in the 21st century, we will understand where we stand as a fraternity today and take up challenges in the upcoming future with success. But before we begin, we also have along with us today a lot of team from the All Cargo Logistics. And I'm very happy to welcome Miss Rebecca Wickett from LND, Talent Management and Employee Engagement for All Cargo Logistics, who has been associated with the organization for more than 4 years now. So I kindly request her to share a few words with us before I do a formal introduction of our foundation and the event again. Over to you, Rebecca ji.
Hi everyone, am I audible? Okay, there's a slight problem with my camera. Just give me.
I guess it's been a little tough day for all of us. We're beginning with a technical glitch, but never mind. I'm sure Rebecca is going to be back again with us very soon. So till we hear from her, I would also request Darshana to check on the video being ready for her to play. Rebecca, are you ready to start?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Please
so
continue.
hi everyone. I am just so happy that we could do this, and definitely it is just a great opportunity that all our women colleagues can come together and share experiences. So I thank the Bhavyata Foundation for helping us and just coming together with all the wonderful ideas that they have. I'm so sure that each one of you will be truly blessed with this kind of session that they have to offer. We have Lisa and Brinda with us today, who are both industry experts, and definitely they can surely share their take on women from the history and what we are today. So every day is Women's Day for us. Today is just a day where we get to recognize and appreciate all our colleagues do. So all the very best. Thank you so much for joining in, and we cannot wait to hear from both our speakers today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Sure, it has been a wonderful opportunity. I would also like to tell you all that along with the professionals from the corporate world that we have as a part of All Cargo Logistics, the team joining us in the audience, we also have students of the Lemark School of Art who are students studying, which is of course a part of my organization where we teach fashion and photography. So a lot of young minds who are here to hear us, and the best part also is along with Brinda and Lisa, we have Dr. Reena Jogani, who's going to be giving us very insightful, I would say very insightful and inspiring takeaway as a conclusion for the event. So not taking much of your time and waiting for hearing them eagerly. First, I would like to briefly introduce all of you by showing a short video of Bhavita Foundation with the various activities and all that our NGO based out of Mumbai does. Darshana, can we please play the video? We have 6 good initiatives where we participate and we collaborate on various fronts. The first being Hunger Free Nation, where it is fight against malnutrition and supporting people for de-addiction. With the help of a lot of well-wishers in the time of COVID, the pandemic, we have been fortunate enough to share this with around 10,000 plus families from the tribal belts and the rural areas of all over India. Our second initiative, School of Sustenance. Here we definitely have green school programs where we have nurturing nature leaders. We also celebrate culture by harmonizing science with tradition, where now Holi is coming up. So we always have organic Holi colors. During Raksha Bandhan, we have bamboo rakis and many more such products which are also eco-friendly. Our third initiative, Sowing the Seeds, is where we have been reviving rural prosperity, mainly working with Dangi breed of cows, which is native to the Maharashtra region. Also supporting and educating a lot of farmers on the wealth of creation by natural farming methodologies. Lessons for Life is our next initiative where we do education for humanism. Partially, I would say our today's session also becomes a part of this initiative where we focus a lot on lifestyle management and different programs which help and benefit us to have a very healthy lifestyle. At the same time, we have Balvatikas, which are the BMC schools where we have early childhood care and education done for them. We do Krida Yoga, where we promote wellness by yoga techniques, and especially for children because they always love to play and learn. That is the kind of methodology that we follow. Bridge for Artisan, Avenues for Livelihood is our initiative where we built a bridge between the rural artisans, reviving the dying arts of India, at the same time getting a lot of products for people in the urban cities, making them originally, authentically, or very well available. So we have a lot of kalamkari artisans, handcrafted board games. We have metal craft. In fact, there were times when we used to always eat in these casa utensils. So now that we are eating in crockery and other things, but we promote these kind of products and we are making them available for the urban market. So we have casa utensils, board games, and many other such products which are provided in the urban market. India First is our initiative with narratives for nation building are also taken care of through various activities. So we have trips where we also promote Indian heritage and science. So we have been going to various forts near Maharashtra on day trips. We have been also visiting cities like Mathur, which is the only Sanskrit speaking village in the whole of India. So we have been having groups going to these various places and knowing about these beautiful heritage and culture of India, making every youth proud to be an Indian. This and much more are the activities that actually happen at Bhavyata Foundation. And here are our contacts. Follow us on social media. And of course, after the end of today's session, we will be happy to hear a feedback or hear from you even on social media about how the event was for all of you. So thank you, Darshana, for playing the video. I now introduce and welcome our speakers, the young and dynamic Brinda and Lisa with us today. Brinda Kotak has been a health tech entrepreneur and an angel investor. Brinda graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a double graduate degree in majors in biological basis of behavioral and science, tech and society. Following this, she completed her master's degree in healthcare policy and management from Carnegie Mellon University. As an eager exponent of Indian culture, she set up the Pen Bhakti Yoga Club and was also an active member of the Hindu Students' Council in her universities. Brinda has been a consultant with Prince Waterhouse Coopers and a health tech entrepreneur. Her passion lies in empowering Indian youth through debates and discussions around Vedic perspectives on several social, cultural, and religious issues in contemporary India. Welcome, Brinda. Happy to have you here. Lisa Bhansali, lawyer, serial entrepreneur, and advisor to the Indian government. So Lisa is currently registered with the Bar Council of Delhi as an advocate. Besides an MBA in marketing and finance, she also holds a double major bachelor in law and philosophy. Having worked with co-founded several NGOs in the field of education, culture, human rights over the last decade and a half. She has been an advisor to several boards in the government of Bharat, like National Policy for Youth and Adolescents Development and Central Board of Film Certification, Northern Region. She is the director of the Indian Society of Agribusiness Professionals. She is a founder stakeholder at several startups in solar, staffing, water purification, waste management, IT, biofuel, defense, unskilled and semi-skilled human resources. Her NGOs and work have been recognized and acknowledged internationally at the European Parliament, United Nations. Much more than this, I think I can go on for days glorifying these two beautiful girls. I would say women for the Women's Day today. So over to both of you now, and I take off from here. Thank you very much for joining us. Brinda and Lisa, over to you.
Thank you, Samira ji, for that introduction, and thank you to Bhavyata and
Brinda, you're on mute.
Brinda, I'm sorry, but I just need to make one point. I'd request all the other participants to kindly mute their microphones and also please put up their questions or conversations and comments on the chat box. This will help us because we've been having some disturbance. So I kindly request everyone else to please stay on mute. Thank you. Yes, Brinda, over to you.
Thank you so much for having me here. And, it's great to be amongst all of you. And it's even better to have with me Lisa, who I've had the privilege of knowing for a while now. And, there's no one else I'd like to share this stage with. But, Women's Day has become such a buzzword, right? It's almost the word of the decade, if I had to pick one. And rightfully so, of course. There's a lot of talk about women empowerment and what the role of women in society for the 21st century is today. So the goal for today for Lisa and me is to hopefully give some perspective about Women's Day, and more so with regards to what it means for Indian women, and women today who are in the Bharatiya tradition, in the culture, and in the spectrum of the Indian gestalt and the Indian ethos, because that is a topic that I feel has not been discussed very often. It's something that gets very easily ignored, because the dominant narrative has always been coming from other countries and not us with regards to women. So, hopefully today we can give you a slightly different perspective on the issue, and through the lens of wellness and healthcare. So, Lisa ji, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Brinda, for bringing me on this. And there's nothing more that I would like to do than meeting a lot of fellow women and telling them what we are all about. So while we were discussing, we've just seen about how a lot of women today, they talk about the struggles they have faced and the glass ceiling, and then there's a break in the career, and there are choices and the pressure that they feel, which I feel that we are all results of our choices, and we bear responsibility towards the actions that we take, and every action that we make out of our free will and choice that shapes our life is it's in the direction that we want to be, and we want to build the society. Like I feel little partially biased, I think, towards womankind that ways. We feel we just do not shape our own lives. We have the ability to shape a whole generation and the society along with us. So I feel we bear more responsibility, and hence we have more capabilities as well to dispense that dutifully. And as I say that, I've seen that a lot of women, they cry victim in 21st century Bharatiya traditions. If we are going back closer to our roots now, we are not as far away. And this is not where we can cry victims. This is the time when we can actually celebrate who we are. And there's this sense of liberation in being a woman. There's more power attached to the word, and that's how I would like to set this discussion today, so we could actually understand that the power that we have is immense, and it's it's also has a little bit of responsibility coming along with it, which is not really a burden. So that, along with our health and wellness bit.
Absolutely. And I think, the dominant narrative has always been about, especially, coming from the Western world, it's always been about how third world women have always been subjugated. And, sometimes when you read these like op-eds and certain things, certain opinion pieces from the West, you feel as if Indian women have only ever been slaves, and we've actually done nothing, when the truth could not be further from that. As Sarojini Naidu so rightly said, we've been the pivot of every major cultural and paradigm shift that has happened in this Pavitra Bhumi, and we can't take responsibility away from that. We have to own it. We have to respect it. We have, and for nothing else except for the respect for the truth and respect for our own ancestors, who we have tremendous, we have a great lineage that we belong to, and we have so many wonderful women that we can look up to. Like Lisa so correctly said, we don't really have an excuse at this point in time. It's time to get out of that mentality of victimhood, because only then, from if we talk about it from a very purely even mental health psychological perspective, only once we free ourselves from any shackles of victimhood will we be able to find our true identities and our true strengths. Until that time, we will always be submissive to something else, either submissive to something that somebody wants us to do or something that we feel we need to do. But ideally, we should be making our choices based on our strengths, based on our goals, and based on where we see our future going and where we want to take society forward. Um, which I think is has been missing for a long, long time when we talk about feminism and women empowerment. And as Lisa said, as we go, as we rediscover almost our roots and our traditions and go back to them, I think we'll discover just what a powerful legacy of women we belong to. And we can talk about historical women, or even very more recently historical women like Ahilyabai Holkar, Rani Lakshmi Bai, who have changed literally the geography of our country. um, and even recently, like we have a 106-year-old woman, Tikamaji, who's planted 8,000 trees in a lifetime, like today. And we have another 19-year-old, Nikita Bisht, who is a acid attack survivor who lost her eyes and now is running two different schools for the differently abled. So we have those extreme examples. And if you look locally just around you, you'll have so many women around you who have done such exceptional things. So if we keep staying in that cocoon of victimhood and submissiveness, we're not going to ever be able to discover our true potential and our true strengths.
Exactly. So, in like modern day Indian political, economical, educational, these three, I think, are the most important pillars of any society, right? Economy, politics, and education. And women have been able to transform these spaces simply by tapping their potential. And it did not even come by that, oh, I have to come here and do something for these spaces. But it's just like you have the vigor, and you're ready to go through the drill of not giving up and doing it to the fullest of your potential. That just by being there, putting in your feminine perspective into those things, you change these spaces. And it might be a very small habit of maybe having a conservative habit of saving and planning for future in your resource, that we can see how America crumbled during its recession. But India did not, because Indian women were still holding up resource. They were way more conservative. You think that's just one act of saving one's domestic pattern and saving your family's finances systems. But actually, when we in majority, in a large groups, when we are doing the same thing out of the way we are, you wouldn't realize the power Indian women, even the non-working, the so-called non-educated Indian women. I say so-called because they do not maybe have fancy degrees like people like my grandmother in their 70s. But these women have been able to nurture the families in a mold wherein we are trained how to run a whole family, its finances. Even the most uneducated woman would have a certain solid gold reserve, certain cash set aside. Her husband has no idea where it is. In times of crisis, this is the money. It might seem very small and maybe even laughable, but this is the money that saves you from faltering your job. You may lose the job, you may not be able to pay the EMIs and live in the credit card world. And that is what caused the American recession. There was no backup. Indian women have been able to provide that financial backup simply by holding on to gold, this fancy glitter. You kind of people make a mockery of it, like you're just obsessed about gold, but this was the yellow metal that could outshine and survive this economy. And the property prices did not shrink, and the Indian economy did not burst like that. And same happened with the political scenarios. There have been researches from the world, the WHOs and the World Banks, about how economies and the countries that were led by women, they performed much better in COVID times. They have a better GDP growth of about 5.4% on an average. So this is not about how small is your area of action. It is the cumulative effect. And this person, when is taking over a larger role, can have a much larger impact. So I would want the women to know, wherever you are, your impact of your actions is much bigger than you yourself. It affects the areas around you in a way that you probably cannot imagine until you see the effect of it coming out, maybe collectively. Iceland 2009, their banking structure was doomed to fail, and they failed. They faced a major crisis. They were supposed to crumble worse than Ireland's, but they survived because this bank that was headed by women by a woman. She was a very conservative person in lending out things and credits, and this was one of the banks that survived, and was a major bank which played a pivotal role in saving the Iceland's economy. Like, if you would like to Google, see Iceland 2009 bank crisis, you would understand the role of women and how it can impact. You might just think me saving might just affect my family, but it works on the whole economy, the country you're running, the economical space you are, the friends and their lives that you're influencing, and the company that you're working in. So I would like to have yourself a pat on your back for being women and understanding the responsibility you have, and just going about it so beautifully without really feeling you're doing something extraordinary. But yes, ladies, this is extraordinary. You are extraordinary.
Absolutely, and which is why it's so important to create our own path forward instead of following some template that we think has been assigned to us, whether it's the template of third wave feminism, which doesn't always resonate with Indian ideals, or whether it's the template of the modern corporate world, which is largely dominated by men. Now it's changing, of course, rapidly, but sort of the culture, the ethos, and argument can be made that the culture is very male oriented, or the structures are very male oriented. And as fast as that is changing, there is still a historical template that those corporates tend to follow. But if that template does not work for us, why should we be following that? In fact, I would say don't follow any kind of template. Like, there's so much diversity in India, there's enough to make a template for each person, quite honestly. No, we don't even have to go by region, but do what works for you and play to your strengths. Because if we try and emulate someone or something, or do something because somebody in the West is doing it, or if you're a rural woman, if you're trying to imitate something that an urban woman is doing, it's probably not going to work for you. And vice versa. The way urban women have to deal with situations will be different from the way their rural counterparts would. And any such thing, so many other factors and demographic material go into that consideration. The point being that our true potential can only be discovered if it's our true potential, and if it's us who are discovering it. We talk a lot about these women's rights, but rights can never be given. Rights have to be taken, because it is your right. So if it's given to you, it's no longer a right. It's like a dan, it's charity. And that's not where our strength lies, and that's not where power comes from. If if women empowerment is truly what we are striving for and reaching for, then we need to use our feminine energy and not suppress it. We need to let it flow. Our abilities, our talents, our knowledge, our inherent instincts, whatever you may call it, that needs to flow, that needs to find its way out in the world.
Actually, Brinda, to that, I would like to make this point. When you say about rights, Indian constitution gives certain fundamental rights to all its citizens. But this constitution came after centuries of slavery. Indian social system has been a very duty-based social system. And when we just talk about rights, we are dependent on someone to
Yes.
give that to us. But in a duty-based system, you have to get up and take that responsibility. So you have a certain duty to yourself, to your family, to the society that you're operating in. And if you go arise out of that sense of duty, you'd be able to deliver much more, and the respect that you command then shall come to you automatically. This is what happens when, when you see a lot of these student organization coming out on streets demanding on their rights, but there are actual silent workers who are recognized across the country. The difference between those who are screaming and yelling and protesting out on the streets and those who are silently working is that one is operating from a sense of duty, the sense of duty that I have towards myself, to raise my voice against injustice, to do something in my action, to put myself in a position of power where my action has a reach to somebody who might need it more, much later, much beyond my lifespan. Like, the fruit of the tree shall not be borne by me alone, but maybe the generation that's coming next. So that is the idea of, having a larger than life perspective. And this is what Indian society and our women in history have worked. Like when Brinda beautifully talked about Rani Lakshmibai, she was not fighting for that just for herself. That was for the generations. It is for me to ensure that I am not tainted when I'm talked about in history later. This is the perspective that Vidur had, that I feel fear not of life when I'm speaking against Dhritarashtra's during the Mahabharat phase, but or I'm saying something against Duryodhan and all the other Kauravas. I fear not for my life. I do not fear for the kingdom, but I fear that history might look down at me. I do not want to have that blot on my character later pointed out by others. If you go on a perspective which is larger than you, then it wouldn't matter how you're operating now, as long as you know you're doing the best to your conscience and to your abilities. Like, it's a choice that you make. We are, I think, very acquainted with some of the very popular names. I'm just gonna give examples like Sudha Murthy. She was the founder. She and Narayan Murthy ji founded Infosys together, but later she left from the driving seat to take care of the family and her NGOs and things like that. It's a choice she made. And even if you see her today, she doesn't dye her hair. She wears very simple clothing. I mean, this is just one person. I'm pointing out an example because a lot of people know Sudha Murthy ji. But the point is, she's comfortable being who she is. She doesn't need an Infosys in the background to be identified on who she is or what is her ability, what is her credibility in the market. She is what she is, and very proudly so. She doesn't need a certification from anybody else. Yeah. And on the other hand, we have a very contrasting Indra Nui, who was the CEO of PepsiCo, and then her elder sister, who was an entrepreneur, Chandrika Tandon. These are the names of these modern times, 21st century, who have accomplished, who have shown their credibilities, their credentials, and we have not been able to yet be comfortable in our skin. I think most of our problems would actually just vanish, literally like this, once you realize who you are, what you want to do, and what you do not want to do. I think it's very important to understand what you do not want to do and not judge yourself from the scale of society. You
and
have to be able to say
it has to come from you yourself. It can't come from anyone else. It can't come from society. It certainly can't come from people who don't know you. And you have to understand your own potential. Otherwise, if you're just relying on external factors, then where is your internal growth?
Exactly. So this has to be your own process of evolution. And I think that is a mental state that we have to develop, being comfortable in who you are and having an idea of who you are. How we get to that mental state is like meditation, spiritual anchors, finding solace. Brinda can talk a lot about this because, Brinda, you have really built a great scope around this. So we can then move this to health and mental wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the most important point about mental health and mental wellness is something that I alluded to, and Lisa, elaborated on beautifully, was the fact that it's self-determination. And two parts to it, being number one, self, that is coming from you and being of your own volition and of your own drive. And number two, determination, that an actual motivation to do something. So there are, you're reconciling beautifully your mental being and your physiological being, and making sure that your mind is not trapped in the body and the body is not trapped in the mind, and vice versa, because actually it's just one, and the mind and body aren't really differentiated. But unfortunately, since they operate on two different platforms, it can be. So the fundamentals for, like, women today, what I would, for mental health, what I would say is just is self determination, and however you come to it, whether it is, like you said, through meditation, through spiritual practice, or through just basic introspection, just looking inward and discovering your true identity, and then acting on it. Like Lisa said, if we are all part of a very beautiful collectivist society that believes in interdependence more than independence, and that once we discover our place in that fabric of society, and once we discover what we can contribute, that contribution will come so easily. And once you are contributing, it's very difficult not to be grateful. And once you're grateful, it's very difficult not to be happy. And automatically, a lot of your mental health is taken care of right there. And Ayurveda operates on the same tracks, whether you have the Panchakosha theory, or you have the Vata, Pitta, Kapha differentiations in your body. But the basic theory is that once you are aligned with your own self and aligned with where you are in this world and what you want to accomplish, what you can contribute and what you can do, then is where you can find your true balance. And that reflects on your health, on your persona, on the way you talk, on the way you move, and the way you think. And when all of those factors come together, that's holistic health for women. And Lisa ji, you can add to that a lot with.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. To just when you were saying this, this holistic health, I think it's a lot about having that discipline. Anybody who wants to achieve something has to, it's a thumb rule, one has to follow a certain discipline. And all successful people have their days planned by the hour. Like, so you have to give yourself that time in between your family, your work, your responsibilities, your entertainment. You have to find that me time where you can think about your yesterday's conversations, how it could have gone better. You meditate on certain things. You maybe you feel your response, which was very impulsive, was not really a response but more of a reaction. And had you been able to think about it calmly, you would have properly able to formulate an articulate answer, which would have been a response and not a reaction. So a lot of times when we are not able to think, we are not in that state of peace and calm, we end up reacting, which goes against us in the longer run, sometimes even in the short run itself, which is very damaging. So I would want our people to come imbibe a certain discipline of maybe breathing little slower and deeper and longer, and imbibe breathing practices. Take some time to do yoga. Like me and Brinda have been doing some yoga since the pre-lockdown, and we've been talking about how it is affecting us individually. Like, I'm sorry, I just brought that out about both of us, but me and Brinda have been friends for quite some time, and we share things that we do and we feel has a positive effect on one another. But the thing is, we share good things, and we are not the kinds who would like to go maybe clubbing, partying, and getting sloshed, and then waking up with a hangover and realizing we just wasted those 10-12 hours. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but if you are on the path of greatness, you would want to have your hours recognized or what you're doing, and the happiness may not really come from losing yourself into something else. And something like alcohol, probably it doesn't work for me, but I would like to lose myself in a cause which builds me bigger than who I am today. And if that's how I see myself, I think this is the reason I could achieve whatever I could that people talk about today. And I don't think I'm a person who is so extraordinary if I don't see myself with my CVs and achievements. And this is something which anybody could do, purely because I do not think I did something extraordinary. I did not do something which was very difficult to achieve. I just got lucky because I was rightly positioned. I was in those places and I was giving out that positivity in the universe, and it came back to me and I was giving back. So this is another vicious cycle. It goes. So you have to choose the kind of vicious cycle you want to be in and not get out of. You want to lose yourself in nothingness, or you want to lose yourself in a process of infinite greatness and where you're stepping up one after the other. This comes from a lot of maybe yoga. If you want to do, you can imbibe that as a discipline. Pranayam, meditation, a lot of women, we have our ailments and body aches and cramps. We deal through all of these, but you know Indian system, where we have had women leading to greatness all through, we've had these ancient sciences which help us take care of ourselves. I think half the medicines and recipe box is there in our kitchen closet itself. If you just have a little bit of, like, I would suggest you read a healthy develop healthy habits of reading these books, where you can use your regular kitchen spices to cure yourself of most of the commonly faced ailments. And I mean, Brinda could discuss a lot about the Ayurveda bit about understanding your personality type. We all have the 3 types of personality, which are moved by either Vats, Pitta, or Kapha, and they dominant our decision making, how we operate in a thought. Like a very simple thing, when we are talking, I'm also a lawyer, so when we do pranayam, we practice that. If I am arguing in the court, I would breathe for like at least 2 minutes only from my right nostril. And if I want to do a mediation and I want to keep peace, I would breathe at least 2-3 minutes from my left nostril. So that's the Chandra Nadi that I want to keep calm. I want my brain to be very calm. And that's where I respond. So I understand in this situation, I do not want to react. I want to respond. I'll calm myself. It's a process. I just close my right nostril and I'm breathing from my left. And I know this works for me. And for those who want to try, you should try, because it's a universal formula. It would work for anyone. But this knowing.
Yeah, I think until Lisa gets back. Yeah.
I was muted for a second, yeah.
Sorry,
And
yeah.
can on day-to-day basis, and just knowing if I'm feeling little dull, you can feel gloomy. It's okay to feel gloomy or dull on one of these days. Sometimes, like, you have a bad hair day, you have a dull day. Sometimes you just wake up, you're tired, fatigued, you want to give up. You take 2 minutes, take a nicer bath, dress well, brighter colors. We have a fabric and colors, and there are so many therapies that you can just include. Smell good, and you feel good about yourself, and back, half an hour, you're back in that working space. You don't have to waste the whole day in the gloom. There are these small little methodologies. You feel
And
like
it's a simple switch, actually. Like, even if you don't want to, at times when it's difficult to introspect and think deeply or sit down and meditate, it's a very simple switch. Like you said, it's a wish. Either I am spending, it's the law of diminishing returns, right? If what I'm spending my time on, make sure it's not falling into that law of diminishing returns. Make sure it's only adding exponentially to my life and what I'm doing. If I know that indulging in these few activities, yeah, it's going to give me, like, I don't know, 5 minutes of some relief, But if in doing something else, that's going to give me a much longer term solution and a much longer term direction towards overall satisfaction and sustenance, then it's a very simple decision to make. And it's really doesn't have to be very deep, because sometimes in a situation of stress and acute anxiety, we may not be able to sit down and think about it much, or sit down and meditate much, but a decision can easily be made. Is this law of diminishing returns, does it for, and everyone's corporate students, like workers, everyone knows what that is. I'm not going to spend time explaining it, but does it fall into that category, or does it fall into something that can actually add exponentially to my life? And always choose the latter, right? Obviously, it's a simple decision. And slowly that becomes a habit. Then it's no longer a decision, it's just a natural instinct. And
Yeah, I think
Fantastic. Brinda and Lisa, it's a great going conversation, and of course we want to hear you guys much more. But before we take things, your conversation ahead, can I just, there's a question that actually Rebecca has put up. Maybe you all could take that one question, and I'll also request the other participants in the audience, if they have any comments or questions, to put them on the chat box, and then we can also hear Dr. Reena. So she wants to know, what is the difference between feminism and women empowerment according to both of you? So could you please take this as a question? Maybe Lisa wants to start first.
I think women empowerment and feminism are very overrated concepts from where I see. Indian women have been very empowerment since time immemorial, since wherever I can go. Where we've fought wars right from Bhagwan Ram's times. The mother had been a warrior. And we have had examples of women choosing who they want to, and they were equally equipped and trained in all the arts, and they had a very important role in ruling the country. So we have been very empowered lot ever since. And unlike the West, who had to fight for their voting rights, we never had such issues. We have not led to these things. And feminism also, I think it comes out of that right-based situation where we have to, when we demand something out of the other and not really command it ourselves. So I feel these are very disillusioned concepts in modern day world. And if we just go back to our roots, we realize we have been very empowerment. The power lies within. We just have to tap it. And you don't need all these labeled concepts as such. And it starts right the moment you start to accept yourself and tap into your true potential. Understanding what works for you. Like for me, if I feel lethargic, or I feel like I am down and I want to punch somebody, I realize I haven't worked out enough. I just need to go for a run. And that works for me. You have to find out what works for you, because really punching someone doesn't work. So something of that sort, just figure out what makes you feel empowered, or yeah, I'm up to it. I am worth it. What works for you is what is right for you. Over to you, Brinda.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. Like for me, the difference is almost semantics. There's not much to these terms anyway. Like there's very little depth to these terms, honestly. Like, women empowerment, I guess, is a small social movement or a social construct of trying to get women more recently, like for example, the right to vote or in positions of power. But that's an alien concept to most Indians, because women have always been in positions of power. Just ask any kid how scared they are of their mother. You will immediately know who is the most powerful one in their life. Women have always occupied positions of power and always been in agencies of influence. Feminism is a political ideology that has sort of co-opted women empowerment to drive it forward. So feminism, and especially third wave feminism, is more political than social. So if you're interested in the politics of women, then I guess that's something you can look to. But if you're genuinely interested in the well-being of women and the progress and the growth of women, then I think both these two terms, like Lisa said, can be set aside, and a much more personalized and individualized approach that is not based on some artificial construct or an artificial template, that can be used. for our own progress. And like I said, we don't need to rely on anything else. That's why initially also I made the point of templates, and this is exactly what I meant, that feminism gives us a political template under which women empowerment has to be run. And if women empowerment is hypothetically run through any other way, then because it's a political ideology at the end of the day, so they're not going to be very happy with it. But if a different kind of empowerment works for me, then why should I not work it? That, like, let me discover my own source of strength and my own path to enlightenment and empowerment, instead of relying on someone else to tell me what I should and shouldn't be doing. So these two terms for me are irrelevant, honestly. When we're talking about the story of Indian women per se, they are not so relevant because they don't mean much to us culturally, socially, and even just like I said, in the general Indian gestalt and ethos, they don't hold much value. So yeah, but
So
that's,
true
I
and
hope that
so
answers.
well
I'll
said
give
by
you.
both of you, Brinda and Lisa. Yeah, Lisa, you wanted to add something, I guess.
Yeah, I was just adding to this, Brinda. There was this beautiful example. This was my life's example, and where when we say we do not have a lot to follow on as from what people have done. Like I was working on a political campaign for BJP in Assam, and people were like, "You have no idea how to do this. We've never had a CM from BJP in this state ever, and didn't you fear?" I'm like, see, we've never had this. So if I lose, we will still not have it. There is nothing to lose. And if I do, I'd be the first person to deliver this. So you have to have that perspective that you have nothing to lose if you're fully dedicated to this and there is nobody charted that path before. You end up either charting a path or nothing wrong happens because it's already wrong already, right? So don't take too much pressure of performing and delivering. Just go on doing your best and be positive about it. And that's your power. That's it. That's all you need.
Super, very well said, and it's really good to hear from young, as I'm always saying, young and dynamic, beautiful, gorgeous girls. That women empowerment or feminism is something that is not really to be taken so much pressure about. I'm sure we are the best, and we are always there doing the best, and in the most powerful. As Brinda gave a wonderful example of the mother that a child is always scared of. And here we have a beautiful mother, a beautiful person along with us, whom I'm also going to now request to speak for a little while and give us her insights. Yes, Dr. Reena, I would first like to introduce her because, of course, the introduction is very, very long and there's much to her credits that can go on again for a very long time. But just to quickly tell you, she is also on the managing council of the Bhavita Foundation, a dental surgeon by profession, who is also advanced pranic healer, grand Reiki master, voice modulation therapist, non-violent communication coach, a psychotherapy and relationship counselor, and as I said, much, much more accreditations, and a very special person who's passionate about serving society. Currently, she's working on street children welfare projects and drug rehab centers. So this is just her little current affair, but she's always involved in multitasking and multi affairs for the welfare of the society. Over to Dr. Reena, please.
Yeah, thank you, Samira, for your kind words. And I fully agree. It's so wonderful to see Brinda and Lisa, young dynamic girls at such a young age, having deep realizations about womanhood. So I really want to congratulate both of you. I'm so proud of you. And I'm hoping and praying that we have many, many more wonderful women like you shaping up at a young age who believe in utilizing their time constructively. Oh, it's such an amazing feeling. I mean, I was so happy to know, like, when I heard like Lisa saying about the vicious cycle, you choose what you want to lose to. And even Brinda saying it's like what you need to prioritize, where you need to constructively focus your time. So thank you so much to young girls. I was so proud of you. Thank you. I would like to wish each and every one, all the women here, a very happy Women's Day. And girls, we rock. It's just that what you believe in. And we truly need to acknowledge ourselves for the wonderful women we are. I think we are amazing. The kind of multitasking we do and the kind of talent we have. We are epitome of patience and so many wonderful qualities, loving, caring. So I think we just need to give a pat on our backs and feel wonderful. And yes, today has been a beautiful day, but we also need to make every day a beautiful day. Every day needs to be a woman's special day. Every day you need to do something to make yourself feel loved, yourself, and feel very important. So today, on a part of Women's Day, I will request each and every one, though we are in the evening, do one thing today. Write down, what is it that makes me feel happy? What will I love to do? One thing, honor yourself today, which could be as menial as treating yourself to an ice cream or going out for a walk or anything that you would love doing. These are the baby steps, when you actually care for yourself and do things for yourself that take you a long way. In serving others, we really neglect ourselves and we lose who we are. We never focus on what I want in my life. What is it that I would love doing? But as a mother, I would be worried, what is it my daughter wants? What is it that my husband wants? What is it that my in-laws want? I want you all to develop this habit of asking every day to yourself, what is it that I want in my life? What is it that I would love to receive? What is it that I would like to do? What is it that I don't like? So, my dear friends, this is an opportunity for yourself to dive deep inside and understand what is it that you like doing. Yeah. So I have today morning, I had a session on setting boundaries. I have just picked up 4 slides from there, uh, which I felt were really important. So I will share those slides with you and have a quick 5 minutes talk. Dr. Janvi? Yeah. Okay. Now I am responsible for my own happiness. Now, many times in relationships, it is seen that we put the responsibility on the other person, that the other person is responsible for my happiness. My dear friends, it's our responsibility purely to make ourselves happy. It's your need and you need to fulfill it. But we come from a space that my husband needs to fulfill my happiness, my daughter needs to do XYZ. But the fact is, we need to walk towards happiness. We need to create our own world. We need to do things that add happiness and joy in your life. And I always tell my girls when I'm counseling the women who come to me, I said, create a beautiful world of joy and happiness that when people look at you, when your own family looks at you, they feel like coming into your life. They feel like stepping into your life, not you being a latch on. Oh, this one is not taking me out. That person is not taking me out. Ask yourself, honor yourself. What is it that I like doing? Create your own world. So getting happiness in your life is your own responsibility. It is not anybody's responsibility because it is your need to be happy and you need to find creative ways of getting into those happy spaces. I am whole and complete. Now, what does this mean? I'm whole and complete. Start developing a beautiful relationship with yourself, which means love yourself, care for yourself, respect yourself, honor yourself. Okay, you can even romance yourself. Okay, but what we do is, I need a companion in my life, I need a partner in my life. Yes, we do need partners, we do need children, we do need family. But if you have a beautiful relationship with yourself, if you are feeling whole and complete, there is no way that you will feel sad or you will feel a victim. Yeah, it's like an example that I give is, there's a water tank. Okay, now if the tank has to supply water, it has to also be filled in. If you're only withdrawing the water from that tank, a time will come where the tank will get depleted. The water will get finished. So similarly, the common mistake that we Indian women do is we keep serving, keep serving, keep serving to a point where we feel we fall flat. And then we start complaining that I am a victim. I am helpless. What can I do? Like how Lisa mentioned that the choice is ours. We need to exercise choices, that how I need to also refill my emotional love tanks, how I need to take up steps and strategies to do self-care, to honor myself, to respect myself. Now that is different for each individual. Now I cannot give you a recipe that this is how you can do your self-care. But one thing I can for sure tell you, self-love means doing things that you love. Okay, honoring yourself and not putting yourself down in your own eyes or in the eyes of other people. For that, there's a simple thing what you can do, that maintain a diary and write down every day what is it that you like doing, and every day tick mark one thing. Take baby steps, like how Lisa was saying, do yoga, take care of your body. There are spices which are available in your kitchen which can give you good health. Do your pranayam. She gave a wonderful tip of the right nostril, the left nostril. But how many of we are actually giving time to our body? We are not giving time to our body, and then we are complaining that I'm sloshed with bad health. Bad health is nothing, but it is the cumulative upheaval of the emotions inside, that you have been abusing yourself. And when your abuse has reached a certain level, you fall flat. So feel yourself that I am whole and complete. The third one is I have the power to make my own choices. This is exactly what Lisa was talking about, that we have a choice whether, okay, we choose the spaces of our life. Okay, we need to be the controllers and we need to be the choosers. We can't give the key of our life to the other person. Okay, for example, in an abusive relationship or in any relationship where you feel that suppose this person is the abuser and this person is being abused. Now, the person who's being abused always feels the victim and helplessness. But hello, you are equally responsible as the person who is abusing. Both are responsible. Unless and until you have not allowed the abuser to walk into your personal spaces of life, how can anybody be abused? So when women come to me telling that I have an abusive relationship, my husband does this to me, or my boss does this to me, or my children don't listen to me, but I think we are the choosers. We are allowing them and we are choosing to allow them to encroach in our personal spaces of life. We have a choice to set our own boundaries. We have a choice to also express ourselves. Do we exercise those choices? So, my dear friends, please go deeper and try to rethink that why are we choosing suffering? Why are we choosing being a victim? Why are we choosing being helpless? We can also choose to be powerful. We can also choose spaces where there is more honoring of yourself, and we can choose more spaces which will also give you your own self-respect. And the last slide of the day is express myself. I can express myself. You know, you need to get into this habit. Please, on after this day, like as a takeaway of this talk, please start expressing yourself. Start expressing your feelings and needs. Start expressing what you like and what you don't like. Start expressing that I am not okay with this. Only when you express, my dear friends, that's when the people in front know that that you exist, you are alive. Okay, so please start expressing yourself. This is a common thing that I see in women, that they're unable to express themselves and they're unable to set their boundaries, because of which people encroach their personal spaces, and then they feel very sad about the whole thing, that, oh, I'm being treated like a doormat, and why am I taken for granted? You know, we allow people to get into our spaces and then we complain. So this is all, my dear friends. These 4 slides were really very dear to me. Most of the things Lisa and Brinda have covered, and I really loved, Brinda, when you spoke that part, that our ancestors have left such a beautiful legacy. Okay, it's been a pivot of our major cultural paradigm shift, but how many of us remember Rani Lakshmi Jhansi Bai, or we remember Sarojini Naidu? We have a legacy of women to fall back upon, you know. And I have known Brinda for many, many years. I've actually seen her grow into a beautiful young lady. And she's always been an enterprising person with the out of the box thinking, absolutely out of the box thinking. And what I like about Brinda is that she has an amazing balance of Vedic wisdom and modernism. So Brinda, I'm so proud of you, and I wish you best of luck for all your future endeavors. and wishing you many, many, many more empowering talks where you touch the lives of many, many people. And thank you very, very much, Brinda. I'm really proud of you when I see you talk on such a lovely platform. I would also like to thank Lisa. Lisa, I really liked few points that you spoke about our olden mothers, storing the gold and being like a financial backup. And also in this pandemic, having a 5.4% GDP raise with the lady, the women handling the economic growth, and the bank example you gave. And you also gave a wonderful, I really like that statement. I actually wrote it down. I can lose myself to a bigger cause, and it's a vicious cycle that you choose to be in. Okay, you need to choose either nothingness or infiniteness. I really loved it, Lisa. I have written it down. So thank you very much for such an enlightening talk. And I'm so proud, as I said, that you two young girls are making our nation proud. And I really, really hope and pray on this Women's Day that we have amazing young girls like you. It was definitely a very enlightening talk, very informative talk. And now I would also like to thank our hosts. I mean, of course, the Bhavita Foundation. And I, on behalf of, just give me a minute, please.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having us in the meantime. It's been a
Yeah.
real pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for
Yeah.
putting me on this, Brenda. I'm so glad you're
I
doing
think
this
we need.
together.
I
Yeah.
think we need to have many more sessions like this. It inspires the youth. So I would like to thank on behalf of I being the council member of Bhavita Foundation, and on behalf of Bhavita Foundation, would like to thank all the employees from the Avyasha group who have joined in on the occasion of Women's Day. Thanks to the HR team at All Cargo for being in touch and allowing us to conduct this program. We request all of you to please switch on your cameras, because now we would have a group picture. So yes, Rebecca, now the whole thing is in your hands and you can do the needful. Thank you very much. Thank you to one and all, and have a wonderful, blissful Women's Day. Have fun the entire year. Remember, the entire year.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I'd like to request everyone to please switch on your cameras because we need a group picture for our record. So if you all can quickly do the needful, and I'll just quickly take some pictures because it was such a wonderful session. And Lisa, Brinda, thank you so much, for those little insights where all of us women can practice in our daily life. And it was such a lovely session, and we cannot wait to hear more from you all in the coming future. Thank you very much. So yeah, so I'll just quickly keep taking screenshots because we have about we still have about 66 people. Okay, at the start we were almost up to 95, but
Yeah, we touched 100 today, and that was
we touched
fabulous.
100.
We nearly touched 100, which was on Zoom. But I'd like to share with all of you that we've shared the subscribe link for all of you who want more information on Bhavita Foundation. Can visit our website and subscribe for more details. At the same time, all our events, like today's video, will also be uploaded on the YouTube channel of the foundation. So you can view this event after some time on our YouTube channel of the Bhavita Foundation. So let's stay in touch, and I'm sure there are much more that are going to happen together as a partnership. Looking forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, very quickly, all our lovely ladies, can we please see your beautiful faces? If you all can quickly switch on your cameras, and I can just quickly take a picture. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead. So 3, 2, 1, and smile. Great, perfect. Others, please, I request you to switch on your cameras. It will be such an honor to see you all. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Bhavita Foundation. Thanks, Dr. Reena. Thanks, Amira. And once again, Lisa and Brinda. Thank you so much for this wonderful session.
Okay, with this, Wishing everyone a happy Women's Day and concluding the session for today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy Women's Day.
Thank you. Happy Women's Day.